purpose of the jointer part of the machine is to flatten the face of a board and to straighten and square the edge of a board. So you usually start by flattening the face of the board. And this has a segmented cutter, which means it has a lot of little knives in a row here. You're going to always want to have as much of that cutter head hidden as possible when you're working. So this has a adjustable fence that moves in or out and locks with this little knob on top. The fence also moves up or down with this knob over here. So when you start off to do the face of a board, you're going to need to adjust the fence just high enough so that the board can slide underneath. On a jointer, there's two tables, an in-feed table and an out-feed table. So the board is fed from the in-feed through and to the out-feed. The out-feed table is at the same height as the top of the cutter head, exactly the same height. The in-feed table is adjustable in height, so you can vary how much wood you cut off at any one time. The adjustment for that is over here on the side of the machine. There's a little lock knob, and there's a lever here in the back and down on the corner here. There's a gauge here that's not very precise, but when the lever is down off the corner of the machine here, that's cutting about a 1/16 of an inch. It has a gauge that says that, but it's not, there's no needle or anything. A 1/16 is about what I recommend for sort of basic normal work. If you're doing something really fine, you can pull the lever up a little bit, make it a little bit less. If you're have a really rough board and you want to take off wood a little more quickly, you can push it down a little bit and take a little heavier cut. You're going to push the board through, and so you're pushing down on the board here and down on the board here, but you're not able to push down on it underneath this metal guard. We strongly recommend that you use push blocks to push the wood through. So these are just sort of rubber surfaced pieces here that can help push the wood through. The dust collection, the gate here, you're going to open up the dust. There's a little, most of the gates have this little locking knob that can keep it open or closed. Sometimes you need to tighten that a little bit because the vacuum on the dust collection will suck the gate shut when you are trying to use it. You need the gate to be open. I'm going to then go back and close the gate that I just had open on the chop saw so that just the one gate is open. The on-off switch is here on this side of the machine. Strongly recommend that you use hearing protection when you're running these big machines because this one isn't really loud, but the cumulative effect can damage your hearing. We have the guard covering the whole cutter head. We're going to pass the board underneath. We've got the height adjusted so that this board will just pass under. I've got the gate open. I'm going to turn the dust collection on, turn the machine on, and we're just going to push the board through. Once you've done that enough times to make the one face flat, you're ready to straighten and flatten the edge. And so when you're pushing the board through to flatten it, you don't have to be touching this fence. It can be anywhere on the table. This fence has some adjustments. It has locks in the back that you can release to slide the fence in or out. So if you have a wider board, you can push these fences back, making sure you cover the whole thing with the guard. If it's too far out to reach, you can loosen this up, pull this back, slide the fence closer to you, lock these down, and it's usually a good idea if you want to straighten the edge of the board to check to make sure that this is at 90 degrees, because this is adjustable. There are two knobs, one on each end, to loosen this fence so it can tilt back a little bit, but normally it's at 90 degrees. So you simply take a square, loosen these up, and you can tilt this until it's right at 90 degrees, tighten that up, and then for doing the edge, you've got to pull the guard back just enough so the board can slide by. So right here, we've got enough room for the board to slide through. I'm going to tighten that back up, just check to make sure it can move through. So now that you've done the face, we're going to put that face against the fence here to straighten the edge. When you push this through, you want to make sure you're pushing firmly against the fence and just using enough pressure to make good contact with the tables. So your main focus is to keep it tight to the fence and to have a little good pressure downward. And you're going to just slide it through. When you get to here, it's best to keep your hand back in this zone until the board gets to the other side. Then you can sort of jump past the cutter head and start holding it here, pushing it through all the way to the other side. So I'll just do that. I've got the gate open. I'm going to turn on the dust collector, put on my headphones. So I highly recommend that once you've flattened a face and jointed the edge, you put on some sort of mark to indicate which two sides that you've flattened, because usually the next task is to go over to the planer to thickness it or go to the table saw to rip it to width. And you want to know which two sides have been flattened. So I always make some sort of mark on those two sides. So now you've got a board that's flat on one side, straight on one edge, and you can move on to the planer to thickness it or to the table saw to rip it to width. So we'll go on to the planer